Good morning and happy Friday. I'm so glad to see all your faces here this morning. Welcome to the ICAT Playdate. My name is Phyllis Newbill. I am the Associate Director of Educational Networks at one of ICAT's several centers, the Center for Educational Networks and Impacts. We're so glad you're here today. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. We are videoing this morning. This is a 360 camera in the middle of the room. So your image is being transmitted to the internet right now and will exist on the internet afterwards. So just know that that is happening and behave accordingly. And if you're online, good morning. So glad you're here also. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you're in the room and eating donuts, and even if you're not eating donuts, please sign in on the clipboard that's around here somewhere. That it allows us to justify donuts, which is very important in our lives. Thank you. There are donuts and coffee. Please enjoy. When you have questions, just wait for me to get to you with the microphone so that the folks online can hear your questions. And if you're online, please use the questions link, and we'll get those there. If you're a faculty member and PDN credit is helpful to you, I've checked in with most of you in the room already this morning, but if I haven't checked in with you yet, make sure you make eye contact with me and say, yes, I'm here. If you're online and watching and getting PDN credit, make sure you put a note in the questions link, and so we know that you're here. In the way of announcements this morning, I hope you all have head over to Perspective Gallery and see the underwater wonders of Tom's Creek. That is open now and really wonderful. And also, ICAT Day is coming, May 1st. We've got a full lineup of things happening. So 10 to 2 will be exhibits over at the Moss Art Center. At 3 o'clock, we have a panel discussion here. Immediately following that will be a reception. And then immediately following that, the folks from Rhizome will have their projects to show off as well. So the Rhizome Living Learning Community is part of ICAT Day as well. I hope you'll all be there for that. I hope you'll come vote for your favorite People's Choice Awards, and it's going to be a great day all the way around. This morning, we have one of ICAT's own, David Franisich, and it's Titian de Monet Immersive Experience. How many of you got to see it when it was in, oh, there you go. I don't know if you were going to ask that, but I just took that away from you. Now you know. Okay. Wonderful experience, and we're so lucky to have David with us. David.
Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you, Phyllis. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is David Franisich. I am the multimedia designer for ICAT. And today I'm going to be talking about ICAT's work collaborating with the Taubman Museum of Art in Roanoke to create an immersive experience as part of their Titian to Monet exhibit that was at the museum a few months ago. Particularly, I'm going to be talking about the use of AI generation, image generation tools to help us do this. I will touch on all the other aspects of the creation process, but I'm going to focus mostly on the AI image generation. So if you have questions about the other aspects of it, you can come and talk to me, and I'd be happy to tell you about it. I'm going to move through this pretty quickly. There's a lot to show, but we're going to start off today with a pop quiz. All right? Quick show. I don't want everybody to look at this for very long, all right? A or B, which of these is generated by AI? Those of you who think it's A, raise your hands. Okay? Some. Those of you who think it's B, raise your hands. All right. B, you think it's generated by AI. You were right. B was generated by AI. A was a Claude Monet painting. All right? Another one. Which of these is generated by AI? I'll give you a few seconds to look at them. All right, who thinks that A was generated by AI? All right, and then who thinks B? All right, so a little bit more split evenly this time, all right? There you go. The painting on the right is a Jean-Léon Gérôme painting, and the painting on the left is AI generated. All right, one more. A or B? Which of these is AI generated? A few seconds to look at these. All right, who thinks it's A? Okay, everybody thinks A is AI generated. B? A few? All right. Well, you're all right because they're both AI generated. All All right, so all these images that you saw here were images that were done as test images as part of AI image generation for this immersive exhibition. I want to give you a little bit of context about the project before I jump into talking about the actual production of it. So in, I don't know, April-ish of last year, maybe May, Cindy Peterson, who's the director of the Taubman Museum, got in touch with ICAT, specifically Ben, and said, hey, I got this harebrained idea. I want to do an immersive experience. We're having this amazing exhibition of European paintings coming from the Joslyn Art Museum, and we want to take some of those paintings and we want to do something very cool. Surely, surely everybody has seen the Van Gogh thing, right? Everybody? I hadn't seen it, but I was very aware of it. Cindy says, we want to do something like that, but in Roanoke and in 5 months and with a shoestring budget. Can you do it? And I thought she was crazy, but we really couldn't pass up the idea or the opportunity because it seemed like a really, really fun project to work on. So probably against better judgment, we said yes, and then we figured out how we were going to make it work. So these are the two things I'm going to talk about, mostly the creative and production end of things, and then some of the technical stuff. So these were the selection of paintings that the Joslyn Art Museum said you can do digital stuff with these. So the collection itself was 50-some images of paintings coming from the 1400s all the way through the 1800s. So very wide selection of European paintings, over the course of 400 years. These were the paintings that we chose. How do you take these paintings and make an immersive experience out of them? We have a very limited world for each of these paintings, right? You've got a very small glimpse into this room in the Renoir painting. You only have the portrait for the Titian painting, and so on and so forth. How do you take these and turn them into an immersive experience? We were very interested in doing something that was narrative-based and not just something that was pieces of the paintings moving around that you would sort of walk through. We wanted a bit of an engaging experience. So we started with, of course, storyboarding, as you do when you're doing any sort of animation or a narrative-based thing. We took our 6 paintings and decided, okay, how are we going to connect these all together in some sort of cohesive, interesting, and engaging way? I know you can't read any of those things. That's totally fine. But then, okay, we have less than 5 months to do this now, and a very small team and a very small budget. How do we create all the assets that we're going to need? We can't hire illustrators or painters to do these things. We don't have the time or the money to do that. We're not some giant production company that's doing like the Van Gogh touring thing. That I don't even want to think about how much that costs to produce. It's definitely probably in the 7 figures and multiple years to produce something like that. So we turned to our new friends, the robots that are going to be taking over the world very soon. Specifically, we used a combination of these 4 image generation platforms to generate assets for this immersive experience. And just a caveat, everything that you're going to see was done, 7 to 9 months ago. So that's relevant now because things are changing so fast that the quality of AI image generation has gone up. Even in the last 2 weeks, has changed enormously. So Midjourney, Dolly, Dream Studio, and Stable Diffusion, all sort of different versions of the same kind of thing. They all do different things well. They all have different interfaces. They all take text prompts differently and allow you to do some different stuff. So using a combination of these tools, we were able to do everything that we needed to do. So quickly, I'm going to show you a real-time text prompt to image generation for one of the image prompts that we used. And this is Discord, which is how you talk to the Midjourney bot. Hit go, it's thinking. Almost there. You start to recognize some stuff. Cool. So you can see in basically about a minute, we have some iterations of that text prompt that I gave. And then from here, what we would do is select one of these that was closest to what we were looking for, either do more variations of it or upscale it so that it was higher resolution. And that's how we used Midjourney. Let's go. So this is just a selection of some of the assets that were generated using that prompt. There's a bigger version of one of the images. Night sky style of Titian. Here's a bunch of different ones that were generated. Overall, I believe we generated, through all the iterations, over 1,000 different versions of assets that we were looking for as part of this experience. There's a larger version of the night sky. Interior of an Arabian palace, style of Joslyn Art. The quality of light in an AI-generated painting is kind of amazing. I was really surprised that it was able to do this. Interior of a 19th century French house, style of Renoir. This was kind of amazing. There are definitely some sort of idiosyncrasies about this. Whatever. You know what I'm saying. There's some strange things about this painting if you look closely that are not quite right, but at first glance and for cutting stuff out and using them as assets in an animation, it works great. So not only were we trying to generate larger pieces to extend the worlds of these paintings, we're also generating smaller assets that would go into these worlds. So here's a selection of candles that we were trying to generate for the Arabian Palace scene. Bunch of different flowers for the Van Oosterwijk. And so Midjourney was giving us mostly pieces of assets to animate. Flowers, candles, chairs, columns of rooms, sky, seagulls, things like that. But we used Dolly, has an amazing function that allows you to extend an image out. And so this allowed us to literally extend the world of these paintings beyond their frame. So just watch this, and your mind will be blown if you haven't seen this, by the way. This is sped up, just so you know. This is, this is very sped up. So you can see how powerful this sort of tool could be. And then I'm going to show you now some of the examples of the pieces that we actually ended up using for this. So this is the original painting, The Grief of the Pasha by Joslyn Art. And there is the extended world of the painting that Dolly did. Again, if you look closely at it, there are some little bloopy, bleepy, strange things about it. But overall, you really get the sense of space and light and place that you would need an illustrator or a painter who could imitate these classical painters in order to do this. Here's the meadow by Claude Monet. Extending that out so that it can fill a wall. All of a sudden, we have a full scene of the Venice Canal. So with a combination of these tools, we were able to piece together the broader world of these paintings. And of course, that's just the first step, is generating the assets. And it's the biggest step, at least as far as the challenge goes. Everything else is sort of a known quantity. Cutting out all the images. So cutting out the images so that we can animate them, so that we can place them in the space the way we want to, so that we can create depth and interest as far as this narrative goes. And you're just looking at a selection of cutouts there for the Renoir section. And then here's a little animation just showing different layers of the actual girls at the piano that were cut apart so that we could animate them. It was all 2D animation. So we wanted to animate the arms and the head very subtly just to have them moving along with the music that's being played. And then this is kind of hard to see, it's a little long, but this is the entire 360-degree wall of the immersive experience for the Renoir painting. And you can see the original painting over there on the left, but cut out, and then it becomes this room of a 19th century French house that they're sitting in. And then we took everything into After Effects and did the standard animation sort of stuff. Yes, I'm hand waving this part. There was a lot of work here, but I'm not here to talk about how you use After Effects to animate 2D things. That's a solved problem. So the physical space that we were in was a section of the gallery, upper gallery in the Taubman Museum that they walled off. And it typically looks like this. And this is a digital representation of the space that we're going to use. This is using an app called Mapping Matter, too many M's, to do projection mapping studies for what kind of projectors we were going to need, the lensing, the power, how many we were going to need to cover all of the floors and walls. So we actually ended up using 9 projectors. Yeah, 2 for each wall, well, no. 2 for each of the long walls, 1 for each of the short walls, 3 to cover the floor. So we covered all 4 walls and the floor. Here's Lee Hartman installing the projectors at the museum. There we see the projectors installed. Starting to do some projector alignment so that we can blend the projectors and map them seamlessly. Use a software called Touch Designer to do all of the mapping, system controls, and projector blending. So here you can see each of the walls has its own individual grid to map precisely. And then you start to see things come together with the immersive experience. And there's Brandon and Gordon Marsh working on music, which is another whole huge piece of this that I unfortunately can't talk about today. I would love to have Gordon talk about it sometime, but he composed original music and also arranged some classical music to go in as part of the immersive experience. He did a lovely job. It really elevated the entire thing, if not made the entire thing. Going to watch a quick video about the creation of this that the Taubman Museum made. Very dramatic music. But there you get a quick glimpse of what it took to make it, and then a little glimpse of the actual exhibition itself. And now I'm going to show you a speed run of the actual exhibition. This is like 1,500 times faster than it normally would be. So it condenses a 12-minute immersive experience into approximately 50 seconds. So there's no audio, but you can get a quick sense of the visual representation. And this is a equirectangular projection of a 360 video. That's why it looks all distorted. So you see the entire room, and the floor and the ceiling are super stretched. And there it was. You've experienced it now. So now everybody has seen it. So unfortunately, the exhibition ended in January. But you can, however, view the 360 documentation up on YouTube. So it's right here, this black and white thing. Everybody knows what those are. If you want to check that out, I'll put it back up after I do the thank you thing. But that's the full immersive experience, real time, in 360, so you can sort of experience it as you might. It's a little bit different than being there. If you have like a VR headset that you can put on 360 video, you can try doing it that way. It is fun with the phone to do, but it's pretty cool. So that about wraps it up for me. This is everybody who worked on it. It was definitely a giant group. Somebody was watching and heard the music. Definitely a giant group effort, and I'm really just talking about one piece of this here. So when you do watch it, just think about how many people it took to make this happen. There's a lot of people who are not on this list, especially from the Taubman, who are not on there. So, but that's it. That was very quick. That's what these are all about. Sort of very quick overview of these sorts of things, but I'd love to take any questions that you all might have about this project.
Thanks, David. Who's got questions? Heading your way.
Thank you. It's fascinating. Can you tell me about how you populate the extension? Do you simply draw on what's there, or do you insert your own preferred, like light or column or whatever?
You can do both. Actually, the way that we used it mostly was just, it gives you this square of where you want the extension to be, and then you have to have a text prompt still as part of it. So what it does is it looks at the bit of the image that's overlapping, it looks at your whole entire image, and then it does its best job to taking that and extending it out. So I don't know, I personally found that if you overlapped like 1/3 of the square, it did like a better job of getting context to the painting and then going out to the thing. Of course, even with that, you can see how many times it was like redone for each section, because sometimes it doesn't get it on the first thing. And you can tweak the text prompt to change things. You can also go in and erase certain areas and have it redo them again. You can bring in your own images. As far as light goes, not necessarily, because it's not a 3D sort of thing, it's just 2D. But you can bring in your own imagery and extend things as well.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. Really beautiful and impressive. I moved here a while ago and I missed it, so I'm sorry. But I'm just curious, you said earlier that you didn't have time or money to hire illustrators and such. Do you have any thoughts on the career and income stream impact on AI on such people?
Oh gosh. Yes, I do. I mean, as with any disruptive technology, it's going to change things. Precisely how, I'm not sure. I have some ideas that, I mean, I think that perhaps the retail nature of some of those businesses might change. Like, you may not go and hire an illustrator to do a $150 job or $200 job, or somebody who's doing a small project might not go hire an illustrator or painter. But I think that there's still a place for, as of right now, caveat, human creativity and critical thinking when it comes to those sorts of things. There's definitely a lot of limits when it comes to these things still. They make really strange decisions when it comes to creating imagery. I mean, I know the most public versions of these things we've seen so far is most recently this week with the Donald Trump getting arrested photos that were generated in Midjourney version 5, which some of them look real, some of them look like, you know, sort of comic booky, almost movie sort of imagery. But you can't replace a photojournalist to be somewhere in person taking photos. I imagine that sometimes they'll be used like that to persuade people or spoof people. So it's definitely going to change things. I hope for the better, and of course some people are not going to have their niche that they have now, which is unfortunately just part of the process of when technology comes around.
We have one online here.
It says, were you able to record feedback from the exhibition visitors, and what were the main highlights of their responses?
Oh, that's really a question for the Taubman folks, because they did do that. They did a bunch of testimonials at the end. I was able to watch some of them. I'm not sure the way that they collected them, but it was very overwhelmingly positive. And from everything that they being the Taubman, has said, they had more people come through this exhibition than any other exhibition they've had, especially for how short of an exhibition it was. All the tours that they had coming through on the weekends were packed with people. They had people saying, I saw the Van Gogh thing, this is way better than that. I've been all over the world and seen immersive experiences. And I'm like, that's awesome. I don't know if I believe you, but sure. That's probably just, me being critical of myself, so.
There was a question here.
I guess this is somewhat similar to the AI, but copyright. So, I mean, these people have obviously been dead for hundreds of years, but also there's estates and so forth. Were there any concerns with that?
We didn't really dive into it. This is like new frontier for everything, right? I think that we're on like the outer reaches of that. I think because the Joslyn owns this collection of paintings, and that's what we were using as sort of our reference for everything. It's kind of like, this is fine, right? I mean, and I think that there's a fair use argument to be made, and I think at the edges of your question is this thing that people are asking about AI models being trained on copyrighted work and all this stuff. And my opinion of that is students are trained on copyrighted work. And so other artists are trained on other people's copyrighted work without their knowledge or compensation. How is that different? I don't know. It's still a question mark. How is it different? But we luckily did not get into any of that because we were just like, these people, these are old, nothing's under copyright here. Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's something that if you were doing one with modern imagery would really come up, and it would be an issue, for sure.
This is not a question, it's just an answer to the previous question about feedback that you got from online. One of the best things that I heard and experienced was how people went to see this, and through this then went back to see the painting. So they'd see the painting, they'd spend a very short period of time there, go see this, and then spend a much longer time exploring the actual work itself. And I just thought that was an amazing result of this.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was a thing that I also heard multiple times, and that I also did after working with these paintings for months, and then go back and like look really closely at them and say like, because we got super high res imagery, like digital versions of these photos, so you could even see closer in than typically you could see when you have the painting on the wall. And it's hard to tell here, but those paintings are very different in scale. Like the Venice painting is only, I don't know, 14 inches wide, whereas the Titian and the Joslyn Art Museum are very large paintings. They're probably 4 feet, 5 feet tall. Yeah, great comment.
So we're at time. So first I want to thank David so much for sharing his art and his work with us today. So let's give him a big hand. Thank you, David. And we'll be back here next week with more donuts and more coffee and more mind-blowing ICAT things. So I hope we'll see you then. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.